I'm Mason McManamy, a sixth former from Savannah, Georgia.
I'm George Wade Mohammed, sixth former from Greenwood, Mississippi.
And this is a little introduction to George and I's Senior Distinction Turkey Hunting project that we're going to tell you all about later through this couple-part video series. We're going to go through the actual hunting and then the habitat restoration part, as well as some possible locations to do both on campus.
Yeah.
We hope you enjoy.
Hi everyone, I'm Mason McManamy, current sixth former from Savannah, Georgia. And as you already know, our friend George Wade and I have been working on a turkey hunting and habitat restoration part. Now I'm going to go into what George and I brought into the field. So as you see what I'm wearing here, I'm just wearing a long sleeve shirt. You know, it's good because if you start sweating, it's moisture. I got some dry pants on, but they aren't pants. It's necessary to have pants because when you're walking through the fields, they're going to go through a little thorns and you don't want that scraping up your legs. I also have some hiking boots on. You can really wear whatever boots you want to, but George and I both learned that you don't want to go out in the field wearing some kind of leather boots because that morning dew can get that leather really wet and tight, and you also want to wear running shoes as they're not too good in the field. So now I'm going to show you what we brought in the field every day. So first thing right here is a backpack. As you see, this is literally what I brought to school every day. I just took all my books out and put some of this stuff right here in it. You really don't need anything special. If you have a big hunting backpack, though, that also worked great. Now I'm going to go into the decoy. So as you see right here, this is a hen decoy, and it's actually inflated right now. But George and I made sure to buy one that you could inflate and as well deflate, because it's really easy to pack out, and all you have to do right here is get this post right here, you stick it in, and then all you have to do then is get the bungee cord and place it right there and put it in the ground like so. Then you have your hen decoy. It's very easy, nice to have one that you can pack. Now this is some more stuff that we wear right here. So in this little sack right here, I actually have a leaf suit, or a ghillie suit some people call. And one thing I absolutely love about the leaf suit is you can really put it over whatever shirt you want. So if you just want to wake up and wear a normal t-shirt or something, you can throw this over and it's really great. As well as you may be able to tell from there, it's mesh and it's really light. Also, the nice thing about the leaf suit is it has these little pockets, so I can actually keep my mouth reed in it, as well as any other things I might need. And George is going to go into later why we use the mouth reed and how to use it. Now, what George brought in the field every day, which was different for me, is George would wear a full camo suit, so he would only wear this shirt. He'd also have camo pants on. But here's what we call a turkey vest, and a turkey vest is wonderful because a turkey vest can carry a lot of different items. For example, George would carry the box call in the field, which George will also show you when and why we use the box call this spring. But it's very nice. You can pack a lot of stuff. The best part about it is that it has a seated cushion, and I will tell you that my backpack's cushion was not half as good as this seated cushion, because George and I, every time we'd go out early in the morning, we'd be posted under a tree, and this is just a nice little support when you're sitting there in the field for a couple of hours. Thank you.
First thing I'm going to talk about is the box call. We would use this in the early mornings, just kind of locate the turkey. It's a little bit louder than a mouth call, so it kind of goes wider range. So it's a good thing to have. Have this pocket for it, put it in there, easy, lightweight, easy to carry around. The second thing I'm going to talk about is a mouth call. So to use a mouth call, you're going to put it in, looks like it's backwards, but the end that has like the round part is going to go into the back of your mouth. You're going to make sure that the longest reed on top is the one that's on top of your mouth, on the root. A mouth call it's easy to use, but it also is challenging to make right noises and sounds. We mostly use these whenever we have a turkey closer to us. It's less movement, and it's not so loud, so the turkey's not scared. So yeah. And then, as we were talking about the trees that we would use, this is a decent spot to set up. It's a wide open area, so the turkey could come into full strut into the decoys. But trees like this have a lot of shelter around it. You have branches that cover you up pretty well. And as Asa was saying, we both wear camo, but that's just a little extra to help us with the branches and everything like that. Yeah, and also with the setup, when we set up decoys, since we're hunting with the bow, we try to set it about 10 to 15 yards away from where we are set up against a tree. Now, if we were using a gun, we could go from 30 to 60 yards, just depending how big the area actually is. But when we're in closer, like the woods area, we'd normally set up about 10 yards, just because so many trees were around us. But places like this, you have options of ranges and how far you want to set up. But yeah, that's the things we would use on a day-to-day basis, and yeah, that's about it.
Hi, Ace McManamy here again. I'm currently standing in a spot that is, as you can tell, a little overgrown. It's actually right near a field, which would be a prime spot for a turkey to feed. It's also near some hickory trees that drop their nuts, which turkeys love to eat. Now, the problem with this is that a turkey is a primarily sight creature, meaning that when turkeys are out looking for food, they're always using their eyes, and they have very keen sight because they're always looking for predators. Now, the problem with something like this is you can see all these overgrown vines, and a turkey will not, obviously can't even fit through an area like this, much less would ever want to go through an area like this. The reason being is that it would just get stuck, and if there were to be a predator anywhere near it, it wouldn't know what to do. Now, if you look up here on this tree and all over this ground, we have what we like to call English ivy. And English ivy is actually an invasive species. Now, one way to get rid of English ivy is to manually tear it away. That is very labor intensive, but what you get out of manually taking away by hand is that you know that it will not grow back, because if you get all of it, then it has no way to reattach and grow. And it's what's very important about manually taking away is properly disposing of it, and a good way to dispose of it is to bring it to Woodbury Forest burn pile. And we hope in the future that instead maybe Demerit Crew or through the Rod and Gun Club, that Woodbury boys are actually in areas like this taking away some of these invasive species, burning them so that turkeys and other wildlife have a better natural habitat. What George and I have seen in the field is we've seen many different creatures that like to hang around turkeys, such as deer. We've even seen foxes, a lot of crows. We've heard owls, lots of geese, squirrels, and rabbits, all sorts of creatures. That'll only better their habitat in Virginia's natural wildlife, specifically at Woodbury Forest campus.
During the last weeks of school for Georgia and I Senior Distinction, we decided to do a turkey hunting and habitat restoration project, which included many different activities. One of which is waking up earlier in the morning. I mean, Georgia and I woke up at 4:30 for about a week and a half, going out to the field every morning, different parts of campus, calling for turkeys. Unfortunately, during this time, Georgia and I actually did not see a single turkey or hear a turkey, and which led us to cut the hunting period of this project short and move over to the habitat restoration, as well as some scientific research of turkeys and why they may not be here.
Yeah, so one major thing that we talked about in the video already was the habitat that surrounds Woodbury. Not very many people hunt at Woodbury, so everything's kind of grown up. It's really thick in the forest, so it makes things challenging, especially for turkeys who pretty much use eyesight as their one key distinct feature, and kind of just was hard for us to find turkey with that kind of stuff in the forest, and all the invasive species. So.
Yeah, I mean, like as George was saying, turkeys' eyesight is one of their most important senses, and in a lot of places where people are trying to shape maybe their land so that they have a greater turkey population, a big thing they do every year is a controlled burn. And the only issue with the controlled burn at Woodbury is that it's so close to the highway and it's so close to so many residential and academic buildings that we don't know if that works so well. So George and I have been finding ideas that we learned about. I learned about during my forestry class, and George learned about
it with Mr. Rafrani and
environmental, and it takes a lot more labor, but in effect it has the same result. Now it may not be what a controlled burn can do, which is generate a lot of new life, but what we can do is remove a lot of this overgrowth as well as a lot of these invasive species, which allows the turkeys to move freely and find Woodbury's campus as a possible roosting habitat.
Yeah, and not only just turkeys, plenty of other wildlife as well. Controlled burn is really, if we could do a controlled burn, it would do more of an area, a larger area. So with what Ace and I have been doing, we've picked out smaller plots of forests and other areas that we're going to start removing invasive species to kind of slow it down from growing out so much. So yeah, we've got a couple places marked on.
We've had marked for a while.
Yeah.
Even in my forestry class.
Yeah.
I learned about Mr. Rafrani, our faculty advisor, really inspired us to do this. Just because we noticed that there is a need for these invasive species to be expelled, and we didn't think it was as big of a problem as it was until we went turkey hunting every morning, as well as many times in the afternoon, and not even hear a single gobble, which is very unfortunate, but there is still hope in that through habitat management, through the removal of these species and overgrowth, that turkeys will return, as it's been seen in many other places around the country, as there was a period of time in America where the turkeys were so overhunted that the region that they existed in was very small, but through the National Wild Turkey Federation, the turkey population has really risen. And George and I's hope is that some of you who may be watching this in the future take it to heart, in the Rod and Gun Club especially, and as a service project every year, go down to these areas that George and I have marked out for y'all. That y'all go in and every year, at least once a year, go in and take out some of this overgrowth and these invasive species and get some service requirements. Now, something that we touched on earlier, George, was the actual hunting of the turkeys. George and I both, we watched a lot of our time we spent, I guess our research was a little bit more fun than some of the other groups because we get to watch a lot of guys, a lot of experience go hunting out in the woods. George, what did you learn from watching some of those videos that maybe some of the kids, maybe we can condense it so they don't have to go and spend all the hours that we did?
Yeah, I watched a bunch of videos, YouTube,
read a lot too.
Yeah, read a lot. It was very interesting, the things I learned. The habitat around Woodbury for turkeys we have an okay habitat. Just from the trees that we have, like the oaks that provide, the acorns and stuff like that, and then the cedars, and then as well as, the hickories and pines. I would say one thing that's easy is turkeys love pine trees. They love to roost there. It just gives them a lot more area to, roost, and trees. The trees for pines are, the limbs off of a pine tree are very bare, so they can roost on that tree. So any area that has a bunch of pine trees in it is always a good habitat for a turkey, and especially it's a good place to try to start off turkey hunting.
And George and I, we'll also share the map. The great part about Woodbury is that it's on the Rapidan River, and it's also at a slope going into the Rapidan River, which is what turkeys absolutely love, being next to a water source. And the water source happens to be near a lot of our fields. Where corn is planted and some sunflower seeds in certain areas, the doe fields. And George and I have actually, we've been in all these locations, and although we do not see turkeys, that does not mean that turkeys never go there. And that in the future, through some help from the students and hopefully y'all in the future, that y'all go down there and there will be turkeys. We would not be surprised. There have been turkey sightings in the past. And the Rapidan River is a pretty crucial point to that. Wouldn't you agree, George?
I would. I mean, you have the fields where they can open and just kind of roam around in those open fields, and then they have the trees, the forest where they can roost at night, and then they have the Rapidan River where they can, water and all the feeding just around, just the nuts, the crops. I mean, I thought we would definitely see a turkey. I mean, Mr. Afrani, a week before we even started our senior distinction, saw turkeys. But that is to say, there is not turkeys here. I mean,
right. And then part of the reason that George and I think we may have not seen any turkeys actually has to do with the weather. It's been very cold every time George and I have gone out hunting. It's almost been unbearable. I mean, George and I had a couple mornings where we had a sweatshirt on. We were still freezing because it was 30 degrees outside, which is not, you don't think of that as turkey hunting weather at all. And that coupled with some low fog, it's probably the worst conditions you could have.
Yeah. I mean, the Virginia weather has not been good. It has not treated us
very
well.
spotty this spring, yeah.
We had, like Ace was saying, low fog. Turkeys just don't want to get out of the tree. They can't see very much. So, I mean, they like to know their surroundings, and with the fog, they can't really see predators or anything. So, fog, and then the rains. We had a rain 3 or 4 days, and just the cold weather just was not the best weather for turkey hunting.
Yeah. And then in the next video, George and I are actually going to go walk you through a map and then an example up here on this whiteboard. Ace McManamy back here, and now George and I are going to show you some of the maps that we talked about previously. So right here pictured, we have all of Woodbury's campus, and then we've got 2 boxes marked with 2 completely different kinds of habitats. Box 1 by a river, and then box 2, what we've learned in Mr. Afrani's class to call the WEF. So now I'm gonna kind of walk you through box number 2. And so as you kind of see this big loop right here, and this is actually the pine forest, and right there along the highway is the pine forest, and you've got the trail, and then you've just got more wooded area the entire way. This area is largely untouched except for a couple trails used for mountain biking. So not a lot of human activity around here, and that's kind of why George and I are there. Now, the one problem about this area right here is that you got the highway right there, and after doing some research, we actually learned that turkeys are very unlikely to gobble when they're close to a road just because of all that noise. But nevertheless, George and I did go in here, and there was an abundance of wildlife. The nice thing about the pine area right here, which to get to the pine area, if I'm going to go back to the big map, you get back to the big map, all George and I did was we would walk all the way down, past the guardhouse, we'd keep going almost until the 2 pillars, but there's that left-hand turn which you can go in these woods right here. Depending on the class, you may have gone down there in one of the mini buses as part of your science. But back there, so George and I, what we'd do is we'd set up, we'd have our backs against a tree. George would use the vest, like we showed you with the little cushion. I'd use my backpack. We'd sit down there early in the morning, and we'd use the box call at first. Although we didn't see anything, there was a lot of crow activity, which George and I have learned is actually a good sign, as turkeys will sometimes call back to a crow as well as an owl. Something we didn't talk about earlier, in a part of how to hunt for them is using an owl call. Is actually a good way to get a turkey to call back. Now, going back to the big map, you may be wondering why I don't have that area up there circled. It's because George and I actually went there, and the big problem with that area, which is somewhat interesting, is that there's actually a house through the highway with a couple dogs in the back, and
they're not very friendly dogs.
Not very friendly dogs at all. That's kind of the big problem there, which is unfortunate. Now, Going to box number 1 on the big map, but down all the way here, kind of the zoomed in picture. It's almost at the bottom left corner of campus, and it actually is. So if you're looking right there, Woodbury actually does not own this land. We've learned we actually got a map of all the land that Woodbury owns. We do not own this land, but we own all the woods around it. The nice thing about this area right here is it's just an open field. But Woodbury does own this field right here, and so what George and I did is we just went down there. We kind of just built a makeshift blind of sorts with some branches and some foliage, some growth. We made a blind right there, had our back to a tree. The nice thing was, so there's actually a big slope right there. You can't really tell on this map. Big slope right there going down to the river. George and I had our backs there, open field right there, big slope, water source, lots of food right here, as it is a field. So in the future, if y'all ever want to go down, this is probably a good area. I'd actually say it's probably the best area to go. Now, one box I did not circle is right here. I don't have a big circle box there because, well, I'd have to break it up into multiple different boxes, although they're all kind of the same, so I didn't feel as need. But as you're walking to field number 1, we're going to go through some open grassy areas, depending on which route you take. And there's many different routes, and actually George and I found that that's actually one of the most enjoyable parts, is just learning all about Woodbury's campus. But if you go through here and you continue, you take that trail that you're on, going through box number 2, you continue that trail, you actually be shot out through here. A lot of open grassy areas, and George and I believe that it actually might be too open for the turkeys, as there's the grass fields are very wide open right next to the highway. We spent a lot of time out there, and we spent most of our time out there. We think the time might have been somewhat wasted, as there was turkeys do love using their eyesight, but at a certain point they do want some cover. Now, we will say, right when you get shot out immediately, there is an area where there's a really big beech tree. Beech tree kind of has some smooth bark. You may learn that as you progress in your career at Woodbury, but it looks like prime roosting habitat, as well as there's some pines over there as well. And we actually spent some time out there way before you get into the big fields, and George, I think that area might be productive as well. So if we wanted to put a third box out there, it would have been right there, but we think that these two are going to be the prime turkey habitats. Thank you.